Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're out in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays. Yeah.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of A Step Recap here on a wonderful Friday afternoon. I'm Aaman and Patel, and I'm with Dustin Riese, Stat Guy, as we like to call him. Dustin, how you doing today?
Doing good, Aaman. How are you?
I'm doing good. And it kind of went crazy this week. This week feels like there's a lot of extra stuff going on. Kind of last couple of weeks felt like it might have been dragging a little bit, but oh no, sports world, it's got to be little flavorful. Last week, we talked about how the MLB was going in a lockout because they couldn't reach agreement on the new CBA. Well, that agreement has been reached, and the season should start April 7th. Dustin, I'm going to hand it over to you to break this down for everybody out there. What does this mean for baseball now that we have this new CBA being reached?
I mean, it's obviously a good thing for baseball fans because baseball is officially going to start next Friday with the first spring training games next Friday, and then obviously the regular season starting on April 7th. In terms of what does it do for baseball, at this point, I just think it's a short-term fix. And the only reason why I say that is whenever you have like a new CBA, whether it's in the NBA, the NHL, or the NFL, usually CBA agreements fall on like a 10-year period. This is only a 5-year period. That leads me to believe that there was still a lot on the table that they did not agree upon. They just got it situated enough where they could temporarily get it fixed, temporarily kind of play so they wouldn't have to go into this lockout. But they still have a lot more that they want to talk about that they don't want to let 10 years go by before talking about it again. Could that mean we enter another situation like this in 5 years? I don't know. But at the same time, it could also be a good thing because if there are more problems that they want to be discussed, they can be discussed sooner as opposed to letting it drag out for 9-10 years before getting to that point.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of reading about. You hit it on the spot. It was like these are usually 10-year deals, and you saying, and me reading it as well, it said 5 years on the dot. I said that this means that they didn't really come to a conclusion. It more feels like, okay, we're losing money. We want to play baseball. How can we just make it work? What can we just agree on right now and get everything back on track, at least somewhat normal, because of what 2020 was for us, that, you know, we had this kind of period where we didn't make a lot of money, and then we can't go through another place where you got 3 months without baseball. We need a quick fix, and that's what they kind of fixed. It felt like they just kind of, for lack of a better expression, put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. They still got a lot to figure out, and they just kind of put something on there to make it look like they fixed everything. They did increase minimum salaries. There's a new pre-arbitration bonus pool and stuff like that, and a lot of stuff that kind of went over my head. Dustin, is there anything in this new CBA to you that really stands out as something that was a real win for the MLB?
The expanded playoff field going to 12 teams, I might be the minority on this, but I always felt that considering how Major League Baseball plays the most games of anybody, they need more than 4 teams in the playoffs. They just do. You play a 162-game season, you need more than 4 teams in there. I always thought they should have 8, kind of like what they did in 2020, and have that first round be a best-of-3 series, the second round be a best-of-5, and then go to the best-of-7 for the championship series and the World Series. I don't know if they ever will get to that point, but I think 16 teams in baseball is ideal just because of how long their season is and knowing that a lot of things can happen in a 3-game series. So the expanded playoffs, I think, is a win. The other thing that I think is a win is that international draft. And right now, as things sit, you have the international free agent period, which generally starts December, January, and can kind of go as long as need be. But teams that have the most money, like the Yankees, the Cubs, the Dodgers, Angels, teams like that, have the most money to spend on international free agency, so they're going to be the ones getting the top flight international prospects. Well, the Pirates and some of these bottom feeders don't have a shot at that. Going to an international draft, it actually levels the playing field because teams like the Pirates now have a chance to draft one of these top international players, which can make the baseball world a more competitive balance.
Yeah, and I saw that, and I said that's a really good thing to have, because if they're not going to be put into this kind of usual draft process that the MLB has, or if none of them are really picked, and it's just whoever can buy them out. Well, if I'm a really big overseas superstar and I'm making money over there, you got to be able to push the button. So to have this, I think definitely levels out the playing field. And the playoffs thing to me in the MLB never really made sense. I just didn't understand why you have four, because it's always been, to me, I've always seen the playoffs as once you get in, anything can happen, whether you're the one seed or you're the first team, the last team to get in there, whatever it is, you can win it. And to me, when you had four, it just felt like this is very, very picky, especially for a long season, just for four teams to get in. And even then, I can see, some people's argument would be, well, you played 160 odd games. You know who the best teams are.
Exactly.
But, we know that the regular season doesn't always matter. And again, once you're in the dance, it's always fun. And I think the playoffs are when the most people watch baseball anyway. I watch more baseball during the postseason time than I would during the regular season time. And that's not because, baseball isn't great. It's just because it's just more entertaining that way to watch more playoff baseball. And I think is a great way to get more people to watch a little bit longer. It might just be the playoffs, but it's at least a longer stage of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
no, the other thing I like too, I'm trying to remember, universal DH. That was another thing that I think a lot of fans are kind of on the fence about.
Yep.
Which I like it because I'm getting sick and tired of these pitchers just standing up there just hacking at like they're swinging at a fly instead of actually trying to hit a baseball. So you have that to kind of work for. And there's one more change, the pitch clock, which hasn't come in yet, which doesn't really do anything for me. Going back to the 9-inning doubleheaders, I like. The 7-inning doubleheaders are fun, but it's still not baseball. 7 innings. We're used to the 9-inning games and whatnot. But there's also one more rule that I can't think of. That if I think of it later, I'll throw it in there. That I think was a win, but I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, for DH meaning designated hitter, which again is it's a cool new rule, and it is something that people have been on the fence about. At first, I didn't really understood what that meant, and I googled it, and then there's all this. I went to Twitter, I typed it in, and then boom, I just saw all the tweets feeding about it. You could see how people were just kind of on the fence on both sides of that whole issue. But baseball fans, the MLB is back. Will we see this again in 5 years? Very much could see this come 2027. Just because of whatever this is, it's just a patch. We know it's just a patch, but I think all baseball fans are happy to get the MLB back.
Exactly.
Well, we might not have the NFL going on right now, but the NFL offseason is definitely coming about, and it's definitely taking a foot. We see a lot of major dominoes, and once we saw one move made, the rest just seemed to fall into pieces. We saw Aaron Rodgers get his contract, and I know that Aaron Rodgers things has been discussed time and time again. So we're just going to focus on the trades that ensued after Aaron Rodgers signed his contract. We don't even know the number of that contract because Aaron Rodgers says the reported number is not the actual number. So we're going to start out with the trade that ensued immediately after this Aaron Rodgers deal, stole the spotlight away from Aaron Rodgers and influx the memes of Aaron Rodgers being upset about that. Russell Wilson gets traded from the from the Seattle Seahawks to the Denver Broncos for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 2022 fifth-round pick, as well as Noah Fant and Shelby Harris from the Denver Broncos. So, Dustin, who do you think got the better end of this deal?
I honestly think both of them did. I mean, we'll start with Seattle first. Anytime you're getting 3 first-round picks, 2 first-round picks out of this and 2 second-round picks out of this, you're going to win. And knowing Seattle and the way they think, they might just package both those second-round picks up and try to get another first-round pick. So if you can land 3 first-round picks within a 2-year period and kind of rebuild a lot of that talent that you're losing, you basically won that trade in terms of building for the future. Broncos won that trade now just because they were only 1 game out of the playoff picture last year, and they did that with subpar quarterback play from Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. They have the offensive pieces. They have the best defense in the AFC West, and they have a top 10 defense overall, and really the only thing they were missing was a quarterback. Everyone said they were in to get Aaron Rodgers, which that might have been option number 1 for them. But Russell Wilson as option number 2 is certainly not a bad option. And you throw Russell Wilson into that mix with the weapons they have on offense, with the defense that they already have in place, Denver became a legitimate contender overnight in the AFC because now they have that quarterback that they were missing.
Oh, I'm 100% with you on this one. I looked at the trade, and I forgot Drew Lock also was a part of the deal. I guess he's just so irrelevant, just kind of slipped out of my mind.
Noah Fant's going to be a good pickup for Seattle, too.
Absolutely, Noah Fant. And that's where I was thinking. It was like, while Seattle may lose for the first 2 years of this, when you talk about, 5 years from now, these are pieces that they could use, right? Noah Fan, if they can get a quarterback, these first round picks, could they use it? They have the number 9 overall pick. Now, I know picking Malik Willis at number 9 might be a little bit of a reach, but if you want to talk about a kid who's similar to Russell Wilson in terms of, physical stature and then big time arm, athletic, can move outside the pocket and get the ball down the field to these weapons, this could be an offense that starts to click again. I do think they're going to be looking for a new head coach in a year from now. I think this is Pete Carroll's last year here. I think it would have been his last year already, but I think he's just a little too late. But for the Denver Broncos, they got what they needed. They needed a quarterback. And Russell Wilson, for his much scrutiny as some people get on him, Joe, we know Joe doesn't like Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson's good, and he can win for this team. And in this AFC West division, you have to have a quarterback to compete. And Denver knows it. They've had a talented roster for a long time, but they don't have a quarterback. Say that again?
They competed without a quarterback this year. They won 8-9 this year and competed without a quarterback.
Yeah, but now like when you see Justin Herbert, you see Patrick Mahomes, you see Derek Carr getting Josh McDaniels, you know that to win the division and to win the AFC, you got to have a quarterback. There's just no way around it. Mm-hmm. You see all the young, talented quarterbacks are pretty much in the AFC. You got to have it. And Russell Wilson, to me, has never really had that number one receiver. You can argue DK Metcalf is the closest thing he's had to it. Tyler Lockett, he's been good, but I don't think he's a true number one receiver. Now you talk about Jerry Jeudy. You talk about Cortland Sutton. And then you talk about what they can have at number 3, whether it's Tim Patrick, or you talk about a KJ Hamler. Whoever they got, they have guys. They got 2 running backs behind them. The defense is there. This team became a contender overnight. Vegas knew it. They went 14-1 after that move to Super Bowl odds. This team is real with Russell Wilson, and I love it for the Denver Broncos. Mm-hmm. The other trade that took place involved another quarterback. But I don't think we're as high on this trade. At least I'm going to project that or assume that. Carson Wentz, once again traded back-to-back years. This time goes back to the NFC East, to the Washington Commanders for a 2022 second and a 2022 third-round pick. The third-round pick could be turned into another second if Wentz plays 70% of the plays in 2022. So I'm going to ask you again, Dustin, who do you think won this deal?
Washington won this deal besides the fact that they have to take on his entire salary, which paying $28 million for Wentz, I think is kind of slapped in the face. But Washington was kind of in a similar situation that Denver was. They had the defense, even though the defense underperformed last year because Chase Young was out and a lot of their star defensive pieces were out. Washington has a good defense. They were just kind of missing that quarterback play too. No one's going to say Wentz is a Russell Wilson or anything like that, but he still only threw 7 interceptions last year. So he did not play that bad outside of those final 2 weeks of the season, and getting him back into the NFC East, Washington could easily win 10 games with him. They can easily contend for the NFC East title with him. And the reason why I'm going to say they won the trade is, what are the Colts going to do at quarterback at this point? Do they believe in Sam Ehlinger? Do they believe in Eason? Do they have a plan to try to get Jimmy Garoppolo, who seems like he's rumored to be going to New Orleans or Pittsburgh at this point? Are they going to go and try to get Jameis Winston if Jimmy Garoppolo goes to New Orleans, since Winston would mostly likely be out at that point? The Colts are.
Dustin just having a little bit of connectivity issues. We apologize about that. Dustin will come back, and I'm right on it with him, to be quite honest with you. I'm in the same kind of position where I really don't know what I see out of Indy, because they need a quarterback. They freed up a lot of cap room, but I just don't know. And here we go. Dustin is back here, so let me just get him back onto the stream.
All right, Dustin. So rudely interrupted by my computer.
Technology just likes to be rough here. All right, Dustin, finish that thought of yours.
Yeah, so unless the Colts have a plan to get a quarterback, whether it's in free agency or trading for one, I'm almost going to be willing to say this is a rebuilding year for the Colts, where they're going to be kind of willing to kind of take their losses this year, take their lumps a little bit, and then planning accordingly for next year's NFL draft, when you're going to have guys like Sam Rattler and some of these, or Spencer Rattler and some of these other quarterbacks that are in college right now coming out, where the Colts just might wait to find their franchise quarterback after this year.
Yeah, and the Colts are in a bind here because I was saying when your connection dropped that they just have really not an answer. There's so many question marks around this. You gave up a first-round pick to go get Carson Wentz, and he didn't give you the production you wanted. Yeah, okay, he only threw, I think he only threw, 7 interceptions, and he played half.
5 of them came like the last 2 weeks.
Exactly. So he played half decently well. It just he didn't give you what you wanted, and then the coaches had an issue with him and whatnot. But now you're stranded because you have a roster that was literally one of the more talented rosters in the NFL in terms of they had the most Pro Bowlers on that roster, and they're built to win. They are, like we talk about quarterback away. This team is really a quarterback away. They missed out on Tom Brady. They went and got Phillip Rivers. They, missed out on a couple guys. They couldn't go get Russ. They couldn't go get Aaron, and they couldn't make any of these moves. And they're going to be stranded at quarterback. So what's their answer? Is it going to get Jimmy Garoppolo? Is it going to see if Jameis Winston can be that answer? I'm not sure. But in Washington, at least you know who you have for this year. You know Carson Wentz is going to be your starting quarterback. And I think that's more of the mold that Ron Rivera likes. I think he likes more of the bigger, physical, athletic quarterback. You saw it in, of course, Carolina with Cam Newton. He likes that kind of guy who can roll out of the pocket and make throws. And Heineke, while he's like a serviceable backup, he's just not the kind of mold I think Ron was really looking for. Can Carson play in Washington? I think he can. The offensive line, not as good, but the defense is still there. You're giving him a legitimate number one receiver in Terry McLaurin, who has played outstandingly well with no one throwing him the ball. It kind of reminds me of what Mike Evans did in Tampa with really nobody down there for a little bit of time. I know Jameis was in between there, but he was never really, that great before Tom Brady was there. Didn't really have a quarterback. And that's kind of what Terry McLaurin has been doing in Washington. Can Carson Wentz be the guy? I don't know. But can they compete in the NFC East? Absolutely. I don't know what Dallas is going to be. I never trust Dallas. Philly, they just seem like a mess. I don't think they have the talent to really do anything this year. And what other team am I forgetting in that division?
Giants, which
the Giants. You can forget about exactly. Brian Dable, I think he's going to work somewhere as a head coach. They could go get Mitch Trubisky, but I'm just not sold on anything that the Giants are doing. So they could absolutely win at the NFC East with Carson Wentz at the helm.
Yeah, and the one thing with the Colts, too, Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins keep popping up as possible trade targets. If the Colts add either one of those guys, well, then the Colts just became the favorites in the AFC South because you have Jonathan Taylor. Basically comparable to Derrick Henry. And if you compare Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins to Ryan Tannehill, I would say that Cousins and Carr are both better than Ryan Tannehill, and the Colts have a better defense. So a move like that would put the Colts over the top of the Titans, and the Colts are close. Even with Phillip Rivers last year, they were 1 minute away from beating Buffalo on the road. So they are close to being the Colts of old when they had Andrew Luck and the Colts of old when they had Peyton Manning. It's just the quarterback play is what's holding them back again.
Absolutely. And, you got to feel for the Colts fans, at least, because, you had Andrew Luck and the team was never there, but they kept overachieving. And then once they got the team there, Andrew Luck is gone. That to me, I was thinking about, I was like, man, if Andrew Luck waited 3 years, he's got a Super Bowl roster. For the first time in his career, he'd have a Super Bowl roster. And this team would be in the AFC Championship game. And that's what they need. They need Derek Carr. They need, say, Kirk Cousins. They need to get one of these guys because, again, the roster is ready. And that's the problem with the Colts is that you're in this mind of the roster's there to win. We just don't have a quarterback. And if we can't go and score one of the top ones and we can't get one of these guys that we think can take it, what do we do now? Do we just deconstruct and implode? Do we move off of some expensive guys? Do we try to fish or reach in this draft? How do we go about this? They're in a bind now because, again, the roster's there and the quarterback isn't. They're like Denver. Denver has been in this bind forever, right? Ever since Manning left. The roster was there. The quarterback just wasn't. And they went out and tried to made a big splash with Russell Wilson. The Colts unable to do that this year. Will they wait next year to do it? What will they do to just go get another bridge guy? The Colts have a lot of question marks, and it's making Washington seem like they won the trade.
Yep.
And so the last NFL move we'll talk about, at least for this first half of the show, Khalil Mack. He gets traded from the Chicago Bears, Chi-Town no more. He's been moved to the Los Angeles Chargers for a 2022 second-round pick, and was it a 2023 sixth-round pick, if I'm not mistaken? Those were the two numbers. So not quite the big-time trade that Chicago went out and purchased for him. Also, Mack is older, a little bit more injury-prone now. So, Dustin, how do you feel about the move?
Well, it's kind of funny how far Khalil Mack has fallen, hasn't it? Because when the Bears actually picked him up, look at the haul that they had to give the Raiders. And now 4 years later, granted the guy's been hurt the last couple of years, you got a second rounder and a sixth rounder out of him. That basically shows you how quick things can change in the NFL. It's a great move by the Chargers because this is going to free up a lot of things for Bosa. Because now you cannot double team Bosa because you have to worry about Mac. And when Mac was in Chicago, a lot of teams double and triple teamed him. You cannot double and triple team him anymore because you have to worry about Bosa. So this could turn out to be a win-win situation for the Chargers because you're adding a guy who's capable of giving you 15 sacks a year. And now you pair him with Bosa, who's another guy capable of giving you 15 sacks. The Chargers defense is going to have one of those pass rushes that nobody's going to want to face, even if it's only two guys doing most of the pressure.
Yeah, and the Chargers, they faced a little bit of drop-off in pressure when Melvin Ingram left, right? And I think this kind of fills that void. And you said it perfectly. Who do you go and double? You can't double anybody because the person you double, the other guy's getting through. It's kind of the Von Miller move that the Rams made. Yeah, I know they have, a couple other guys named Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd and whatnot, but it's a similar type of situation where you have great pass rusher on one side, you add another one, and both alone can create damage. Now you put them both together, and especially in a division where you're going to see Mahomes twice, you're going to see Russell Wilson twice, you're going to see Derek Carr twice. You got to get to the quarterback, and that's what they're able to do. And, you also talk about in the back, they got Derwin James, right? And then they are looking to make a big splash for J.C. Jackson. Could you imagine adding J.C. Jackson? And they have still plenty of cap space, even with this trade, to go get J.C. Jackson, lock down a side, have the pressure colliding. This is a team that knows Justin Herbert is going to make a Patrick Mahomes type payday, and they're trying to cash in on his Super Bowl window now. They don't want to wait for him to be this expensive, gaudy guy they have to work around. They are ready to go in all right now, and I don't think the Chargers are done this offseason.
Either do I. The thing is it going to matter to him because if Brandon Staley doesn't kick field goals, it's not going to matter what kind of talent you acquire on defense because you're leaving points on the board, which is going to cost you a playoff spot.
Yeah, and also you brought up Brandon Staley. Khalil Mack did play with Brandon Staley, and he had some of the better years of his career. So that is a good move to bring back. And yeah, like to your point, I think Brandon Staley has to get a little bit more mature in his calling. And I think sometimes that's like, you have those eyes of, I could just let's just go for it. Let's just do it. That's why not. I think now it's kind of like, okay, that's why not. Hopefully he ends up learning from that. And it's okay to go for certain situations, but when there's points to be had. There's certain situations where all right, let's just take our three, let's get ahead, let's get some points, at least create some momentum for ourselves.
When you're facing Kansas City and you have the ball, 4th and goal on the 2, you take the points. You don't give them a chance to not take the points.
Hey, but it happens to the best one, right? Cincinnati did the same thing before halftime against, not Cincinnati, Kansas City did the same thing against Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game, and Kansas City ended up not being able to play football from that point on. They just forgot how to play once they weren't able to put the ball in the end zone in that first half. But, what about from the Bears? What are you thinking from the Bears' perspective here? They move off of him, new head coach. Is this signaling like a new era in Chicago?
It is signaling a new era, but you have to look at the salary cap that the Bears are kind of left with. They did free up a lot of cap space from where they were at the end of the season, so they had more room to work. But their goal heading into this offseason was to free up as much cap space as possible so they can make some of these moves. Losing Mac is going to hurt because of the year that Robert Quinn had last year. Now Robert Quinn is going to be the one getting all the double and triple teams because Mac's not going to be there. But now the Bears do have additional funds freed up where they could add another pass rusher, where they can add a number 1 or a number 2 receiver this offseason and kind of add to the offensive line and just piece together the pieces that they need to fill.
Yeah, and that was kind of how I thought about it. And also Mike, he's great. Mike on the Mike podcast. He put something on Facebook, and I was like, this is really interesting. They hire Matty Eberflus and they trade away Khalil Mack, and now they make cap space, right? They make cap room, and you're thinking if Eberflus is the defensive genius that people are claiming him to be, he said that he's going to work with these young guys. He's going to get them to work. And yeah, Robert Quinn is still there. Eddie Goldman hasn't really been the guy they hoped for, but he is still there. Akeem Hicks is still there. You have guys who can still get to the quarterback, and this defense is still very much a viable defense. And I am all for it here. And also, now you can go get Justin Fields some help. You can go, if you want to pay Allen Robinson, you can pay him and still get another receiver, another quality receiver. You can go and draft one. You can find different ways to surround Justin Fields with talent, because I think we all saw it last year there were flashes where Justin Fields looked spectacular, and you could see the star potential there. Go surround him. Darnell Mooney is a great 2 or 3 receiver. If you can put another 2 receivers around him, whether one's free agent and then you add like Chris Olave in the draft, you find a couple of ways to surround Justin Fields with this extra cap space, you're going to have a great time in this NFC North, in this NFC North, rather.
Yeah, I kind of like what you said about Chris Olave because Olave played with Fields in college.
Yep.
And you're starting to see a lot of these teams, the Miami Dolphins with Tua and Waddle, Bengals with Chase and Burrow, where they're trying to get these guys that have played together before to play together in college. And no one's going to say that Olave and Fields would have the same success that Chase and Burrow had, or Waddle and Tua for that matter. But Olave played very well when Fields was the quarterback, put up great numbers. And if you bring that to the table and he can even put up something close to what he did in college, that's a legitimate number 2 option that Chicago didn't have that offers speed and big playability.
Absolutely. And then again, Darnell Mooney, I think, is someone that a lot of people don't really talk about, but he played really well. He was running great routes.
Had over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's going under the radar. And if you could, again, add a receiver like Chris Olave, you get someone in free agency, whether, you're going after Amari Cooper, you're going after Allen Robinson, whoever you feel is the guy that you can fit in there. You add those 2 guys alongside Darnell Mooney with Justin Fields at the helm, you're going to have a great time. And the running game is not going anywhere. You still have Herbert, who had a great first year, right? So you have an opportunity to build something, a really good foundation now. And I don't think the Bears are crazy for trading Khalil Mack. Just, again, I like it. They didn't get caught up in the emotion of, well, Khalil Mack kind of saved this team. Okay, well, you know what? We can't hold on to it. And I think that's such a win for a Bears fan.
Exactly, agreed.
Well, we will continue this conversation. We'll jump into some college hoops in a little bit, but first we need to let you know to check out some of our merch.
Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. Sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so type the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.
All right, so welcome back. We just finished up a conversation about Khalil Mack, and we both think that both sides are going to have an opportunity to really put something special on the board. The Chargers with Khalil Mack and the Bears in this new kind of era in Chicago. But, man, it's March, so we know what that means. March Madness is upon us, and definitely upon us. We had 4 games that really stood out to me over this past week where we saw unranked teams go in and beat some big-time opponents. Dustin, tell me what was your favorite upset, or what was, the biggest upset? What was the game to you that really stood out?
I think Texas A&M knocking off Auburn today, mainly because that might cost Auburn a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, because they were one of those 5 teams kind of playing for the number 1 seed. So with their loss, that paves the way for Kentucky to lock in a number 1 seed and lock in the SEC title if they can finish it off. For Texas A&M, a win like that pretty much solidifies you're going to make the field, whether as a 12 seed or as a 13 seed. You most likely are still going to get in, because that win's going to carry a lot more merit than some of the other wins that these other teams are going to get in the conference tournament.
Absolutely. Yeah, that game was like, wow, you're Auburn, you're sitting at 4. If you could just hold it out, you are a team that's going to get a 1 seed in this NCAA tournament. And losing that 1 seed, while it might not hurt you in the first round, maybe not the second round, that third, as you keep moving, that 1 seed becomes ever so more important, because all these teams can go in there and play, and they're just going out there hungry. Another big-time win for me was Oklahoma beating Baylor, beating them 72-67 in the Big 12 quarterfinal. You talk about a number 3 Baylor team that at one point a lot of people were saying they're the best team in the country. There's no really real way to beat them. And as of late, they've really kind of fall off. They haven't really had that kind of dominating performances that you're accustomed, or at least I was accustomed to seeing them for the first part of the season. So for me, that's another loss that, man, Baylor, you're kind of slipping off a little bit, and and to me, you might be in jeopardy of losing a number 1 seed.
Yeah, especially when you have teams like Duke and Kentucky, like I said, and Kansas, all if they win their conference tournament. Anytime you win the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12, chances are you're going to get a number 1 seed. Usually
Yeah.
the Big 10 tournament champion also gets a 1 seed, but with Gonzaga being number 1 in the country, it's kind of hard for Gonzaga to get bumped. Same with Arizona and the Pac-12. But that just means at this point, 2 of the 4 number 1 seeds now are wide open. And that's
Yeah.
basically whoever can walk away with the conference tournaments, and then they're going to have to go basically to the committee where this team beat this team lost to this team, strength of schedule, RPI, and all that stuff, where the 2 teams that have the best RPI are probably going to get those last 2 number 1 seeds.
It's absolutely crazy. And Nathaniel brings up the point of Gonzaga's beating BYU on the women's side. And that's another interesting one to go off of. But the other upsets that took place, Indiana beat number 16, Illinois 65-63, also the 12 side of things. And then we also had another set that took place. It was TCU beating number 22 Texas 65-60 in the Big 12 quarterfinal. Indiana was the Big 10, if I misspoke on that one. Is there any game coming up, either tonight or this weekend that you're really looking forward to or think could be a big time matchup?
Wisconsin, Michigan State in the Big 10. Wisconsin's seen as most likely the favorite to win the Big 10. But this is tournament time, and tournament time with Tom Izzo is always an interesting and fun time because his team can look really bad during the regular season. All of a sudden, we get to the Big 10 tournament, and they look like a completely different team, and all of a sudden make an Elite 8 run in the NCAA tournament. I think the Indiana-Illinois game, did that happen yet, or is it going on right now?
Indiana beat Illinois 65-63.
So, yeah, that was the one game I'm looking at because I'm also looking at the Purdue game later. The Big 10 tournament in Indianapolis. If Indiana plays Purdue in the Big 10 championship, 2 Indiana schools playing in the Big 10 championship in Indiana, that's going to be a nice storyline there. Duke and Miami is another game that I'm kind of watching tonight, mainly because we saw North Carolina beat Coach K on his final home game, which was shocking, I think, for a lot of people. And then you had Syracuse basically give Duke everything they could handle yesterday with their best player out. Duke ended up winning it because they went on a 10-0 run late. Miami is a very senior-led team that beat Duke once already this year that was leading the ACC all season until the final 2 weeks of the year. So they can very easily take down Duke today, which would kind of make things interesting in the ACC championship game. But like I said last week, and North Carolina loss aside, I think the stars are just aligning for Duke at the right time for them to try to at least get Coach K to the Final Four in his final year. And it starts now. If they need to play better than what they did against Syracuse, and it would start against Miami. A big win against Miami tonight, even if it's not a blowout win, as long as they can win it, it's going to go a long way of getting them ready for next week.
Oh, I'm so with you here. When I saw the Duke-Syracuse game, I was saying Syracuse is hanging with it, and not just hanging. They are landing punches here. You're saying, how is this possible? How has it come into this? And you're saying, is Duke going to lose? And I think it was kind of a staple of a well-coached team. When they needed to have it, they had the run that separated them. But again, Miami, as you said, beat them earlier. They're senior-led. They don't get into these kind of head spaces where it's like, they don't make these mental mistakes. I think a lot of young teams do. This is a team that knows what to do, knows how to beat Duke. And we're also we're making way for another Duke UNC matchup, this time in the ACC championship game. If this happens again, I don't know what's going to happen. I live 20 minutes from the Duke campus, and I live 20 minutes from UNC campus. So it's going to be all hell breaking loose if we have a third matchup between Duke and UNC to see who can settle the score. But Duke has to continue to play better. And for Coach K's sake, this team needs to find a way to really start clicking. They were clicking that last month of the year up until the North Carolina game. They didn't really play well against Syracuse. Can they find a way to do it tonight against Miami? You kind of stole the games I was looking at. I was looking at the Duke game. I was looking at the Purdue game just because when I saw Indiana won, I said, could you imagine having the combine and then having 2 Indiana schools play in the Big Ten championship game? That would have been a really interesting one. One in the Pac-12, you got USC taking on UCLA today, number 21 against 13. So it's
LA.
Battle of LA, absolutely. And those 2 schools hate each other, so that should always be fun. I think those rivalries are just cool. And maybe because I grew up watching Duke UNC, I just think these interstate rivalries are the best. But man, that Duke game is what I'm watching because I want to see Duke Carolina play in that ACC championship game. And I want to see if Duke can really put together a complete performance. And I think that's what we're waiting for, that complete performance. We say, yeah, this team has the legs underneath them to go and make a big tournament push.
Exactly. And we've seen that a couple of times. We haven't seen it too often. We've seen it a couple times. But back when they have Zion, Cam Reddish, and RJ Barrett.
Yep.
That year, you saw complete performance after complete performance after complete performance, and you saw how good that team was.
Yep.
I mean, this team doesn't have the same level of talent that team had, but Paolo Banchero is a top 3 pick. AJ Griffin, who's emerged as a second-half star, is going to be a lottery pick if he decides to leave early. Wendell Moore is starting to show that he's a first-round pick, and if they could put a complete game together, the team is more than capable of putting up 90-point games every single night and holding opponents to under 70 points because of the length they have on defense.
They have everything. I think they have everything to get out there. But again, it's not the most talented team in the world, but they have all the pieces, and pieces are starting to perform at the right time. Again, I think for that Zion and Cam and RJ team, they kind of peaked really early. You saw the best of them early, and they just felt like they were just defending the mountaintop. And there was this expression that it's easier to climb the hill than to defend the hill. Once you're on top, it's hard to defend it. But being from the bottom and climbing up is the easiest part of it, which was really interesting. And I was like, and man, that felt like the case because when Zion was there, it felt like everyone is just picking Duke to just walk through it. And everyone was giving Duke everything that they could handle. And then this time it feels like people are like, are Duke that good? Duke is this, and I don't really know. And they're just kind of slowly climbing up there. Everyone's starting to put good performance on good performance. Everyone's starting to pick up their play. Again, outside the one bad game against North Carolina to finish the year, they had a good last month. They didn't have a great game against Syracuse, but they won it when it mattered. Can they do it again against Miami tonight, and can they continue to do it? It'll be a fun thing to watch for as we head into this month.
And the player nobody talks about is Mark Williams. This thing is 7'1" sophomore who doesn't get a ton of points offensively because they don't use him, but he can easily take a game over just by what he does on the rebounding side of things, what he can do to contest the shot. Like, he doesn't need to score. He's there to like contest shots. He's there to get rebounds and get the team off and running. But when you need him to score, all you do is lob it up to the rim and he'll catch it and throw it down. So, I mean, he's the biggest X factor, more so than Banchero or any of these guys, just because there's not too many teams in the country that have a 7-footer that can match up with him.
Yeah, and that first matchup against Chapel Hill, he was kind of dominant in that second half when they started to pull away. There was always a pretty decent margin, but he started to really impose himself. Again, didn't score a lot of points, but UNC had just no answers for him on the glass. They just couldn't find a way to figure out how to work the pick and roll with him, how to fix him on the glass. They had no answers. And if they can use him, get him going, man, oh man, it's going to be a real interesting matchup here. Again, that 7-footer could be the difference between Duke walking away in the Final Four or, getting the whole thing. That guy could really be the difference because you have the top 3 pick. You have, the really athletic AJ Griffin, Wendell Moore's coming together, but it's that 7-foot presence in the middle. That's just an X factor. You can't teach being 7 foot tall and being able to get that high and get the rebound.
And he's an athletic 7-footer too that can jump.
Yes.
It's not like these 7-footers that they jump, but they don't have a lot of hops. He can actually jump and make it look athletically easy.
Absolutely. He had 16 points and 13 rebounds in the first matchup, or in the second matchup, I think, between Duke and Chapel Hill. So he's still a force, even though they couldn't really match up with him. So, even though Duke couldn't really get themselves going, he was still a force to be reckoned with. If he can get going, it's hard for anybody to win against Duke. And again, both defensively, offensively, Duke can get it done. They're going to try to do it for Coach K. And again, we are heading into this month of absolute madness. And since we do have a little bit of extra time here, we weren't going to talk about Aaron Rodgers originally, but I do want to get your thoughts on it. Aaron Rodgers reportedly is getting a $500 million deal for 4 years. If that was it? No, $200 million. Excuse me, $200 million for 4 years, being signed until he was 42. So I remember when Tom Brady was originally signed into his 40s, people went crazy because they said no quarterback can play until his 40s. Now no one really cares. Dustin, if that is the true number, because again, Aaron Rodgers has come out and said that is not the actual number that he is signed on for, do you think the Packers have what it takes to win the Super Bowl?
I think it's stupid they gave him that much money to begin with for a couple of reasons. First of all, how are you going to fill out the rest of your roster when you're paying a guy $50 million when Devontae Adams just got $22 million on a franchise tag and is obviously going to get more next year if you want to extend him? You have to extend Jair Alexander. You have Bakhtiari and Aaron Jones you still have under contract. I don't see how they can afford to fill out the roster the way they want to when you're paying Rodgers as much as you're paying him. The other thing that this 4-year deal tells me is that he was not even considering retirement at all. Because if he really was considering retirement, there's no way he signs a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
He signs a 2-year deal, maybe. The fact that he signed a 4-year deal just basically shows you that he manipulated the Packers into thinking that he was going to retire, basically for them to fork over everything they could afford and just dump a Brinks truck in his front yard.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. If that's the number, I just don't know how you can build a winner here because I was thinking, man, if he takes a team-friendly deal, the Packers could go out and get J.C. Jackson, right? So you can pair and sign Jair Alexander. So you paired those two together, and your pass rush was there. You're playing in the NFC North, so you're going to walk into the playoffs. You're going to walk in with the 1-2 seed, and then you can sign Devontae Adams. You can bring in a guy. If you want to bring in an Allen Robinson from the Bears, you could go bring in a guy like that. Bring in a number 2. You could do a lot of different things. But if this is the number, the Packers are in a bind. And again, Rodgers, if this is the number, he got his money. He got what he wanted. So I don't want to hear a Packers fan come to me in January when they lose in the playoffs and say, "Oh well, our defense wasn't there."
You wonder why.
I'm sorry. Well, you have no problem with your quarterback taking $50 million, taking part ownership of the team. I'm sorry. Like, again, if Tom Brady went and took $50 million and you lose, you're like, okay, Tom, well, you don't do that. But he did it. He said $25 million when he went to Tampa. I'm good. Just build everything around me. And then Packers fans say, look at Brady. He gets everything so easy. Everyone knows how to build around him. But when you have money, you can build around somebody. That's why the Chargers can make all the moves they can right now because they're not paying him anything. They're not paying Justin Herbert anything. So if you're going to complain to me in January that you can't win, I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for you because Aaron Rodgers is taking $50 million. When Devontae Adams leaves, I'm sorry. Aaron Rodgers took $50 million. What do you want from me?
Just thinking, what is that? 23.5% of the team's salary cap is what he's at now?
I think that was the number, 23.5%.
Yeah.
23.5% of the team's salary. There are 52 other guys who at least going to be on the active roster that they have to pay. With less than 80% of the cap space, they had to pay 52 players.
I don't remember if I read this correctly or not, but I think after they brought Adams in on that franchise tag, I think they said the Packers had to either restructure Aaron Jones's contract or Bakhtiari's contract. Otherwise, they wouldn't have enough money to even sign their draft picks.
And Aaron Jones took a team-friendly deal.
Yeah. So if you
Aaron
don't have
Jones
enough money to sign
there.
your draft picks, that's a big problem.
Those are cheap. And again, it's not like Aaron Jones is making stupid Zeke.
No, he's getting like $11 million or $12 million, I think.
He took a very team-friendly deal. He could have gone out and said, all right, you're not going to pay me. They'll pay me. But he said, no, I'm trying to win. I'm going to take a team-friendly deal to help out my team. And now they got to restructure his deal. They got to restructure Bakhtiari's. Again, if you're making $50 million a year, don't talk to me about the team because this is how he's going to be. You got to sign 52 other players with less than 80% of your contract, with 80% of the cap space. You can't sign your draft picks. So what are they going to do? They probably trade a bunch of draft picks so you don't have to pay them. You don't have to restructure everybody.
I want to talk about this move from the other side of things, though.
Yeah.
What does this do for Jordan Love?
Yes. Thank
you. Realistically, you literally traded up to draft Jordan Love. And now he is going to sit on the bench for 5 years and see a grand total of 1 start and maybe 100 snaps in 5 years. You can't even call Jordan Love a bust because he can't see the field. And not only does that affect him in Green Bay, but that's going to affect him anywhere he goes after this because when he hits the free agent market, what team is going to want to give him a chance if he has to sit on the bench for 5 years and do nothing?
And I heard a report that the Colts would be interested in trading for Jordan Love, which is, again, I don't know, but do the Packers, like, are they going to ever say that they messed up? Like, what is going on with this Jordan Love pick? Because, again, at the time I said, I don't know why you traded up to get him, but I can see the thought process behind going and getting Jordan Love, right? Big arm kid. You thought if you can just work with him a little bit, it works. But you traded up. You traded up to get him. No one was taking him from where you took him. I think they took him at what, 23?
28 they got him.
28. And they were at what, 30?
34 they were at. They traded their 34th pick to move up to 28.
They traded 34 to move up to 28. So they could have signed the second round, in my opinion, and still gotten Jordan Love. I don't think there was anyone really at that point that was left that were going to go and take Jordan Love. So I was confused of why they traded up. Again, I thought, okay, I can see the pick, though. I can see the thought process. But now you go give Aaron Rodgers 4 years, and you just say, you know what? Take half the ownership. Just do whatever you got to do. This tells me, one, you don't believe in Jordan Love. He's never going to be ready. And now I'm ready. If I'm the Packers, just cut my losses with the kid. Like, what are you defending now? You just told me he's not going to work. So just cut my losses. Trade him for a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick. Whatever you can get for him. Just trade him now before he hits free agency and you get nothing. At least now you could say, okay, give me a 3rd. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and like what everyone says, that Jordan Love's not going to be ready. How can he be?
How can he be?
He's never going to see the field unless Rodgers gets hurt.
Again, people will point to Aaron Rodgers sitting for 3 years. Yeah, but then his first year, he went like 6-10. He was not very good his first year. No. He was a big learning curve. He played well. I think game 1, he played well. And then after that, didn't really have a great year, which is fine. Again, I think there's this huge rush to, quarterbacks have to play well in their first year. Otherwise, they're not going to be good. No, take a breath. Breathe. They got to
Look what Peyton Manning did his rookie year.
Yeah,
look how exactly. Peyton Manning turned out.
Exactly. You don't have to be good right away to be a good quarterback. You can take some time. It's okay. You have to adjust to the speed. Honestly, I think it's a little bit scary, and I don't trust guys who are too good right away. In their first year, they're just, kind of ducking it all over the place. Sometimes it's like it. I'm not saying it's a red flag, but again, you're sitting here saying, he can't be ready. No, he can't be ready. But you got to go get him ready at some point,
Exactly, and that's the part that I don't think the Packers realize. Like, Packers were fortunate to trade for Brett Favre because Atlanta really didn't believe in him at that point.
Yeah.
And the Packers were kind of in like a New Orleans Saints situation where they didn't have a quarterback and they were just trying anything to get it to work, and Brett Favre clicked. Then they go and draft Aaron Rodgers, which worked in their favor, obviously, but they were fortunate because Favre was already nearing the end of his career. He wasn't going to talk long-term extension. So it was easier for them to move Favre when they did in order to give Rodgers that opportunity. Jordan Love came when Rodgers was getting to the back end of his career, but he came when Rodgers signed one extension. Then Rodgers wants another extension and gets another extension. So now, like, Jordan Love is if the Packers hang on to him, he's basically going to become the next Doug Peterson of Green Bay, where he's literally just the permanent backup for Aaron Rodgers, and that's what he's going to be known as.
Yeah, and again, if I'm the Packers, if I know I'm not going to play him in 4 years, let me get something. I think this is just mind-blowing. You don't want to admit you messed up because you're saying if we trade him, then we admitting that we don't think he can play for us. But then you also don't want him to play for you because you don't think he's good enough to play for you, barring you just gave Aaron Rodgers a contract to play till he's 42. So we know what you think about him. Move off of him. Don't have this pride of like, we picked him and we can't let everyone know we don't believe in him anymore. You don't. We know. I'm sorry. It was supposed to be a secret because
not a secret.
Giving a 38-year-old 4 years and $50 million a year, it's not a big secret.
Exactly.
And do you think there would be a team to trade for Jordan Love?
There's only 2 teams that could realistically see trading for him. And one being the Colts, just because they have Jonathan Taylor, they have a good defense, they have a good offensive line, and now that they got rid of Wentz, they kind of need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, because I don't know if they believe in Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh's got a great defense. They got good receivers in Chase Claypool and Johnson, and if they brought Juju Smith-Schuster back, they got a young running back in Najee Harris. So, I mean, Pittsburgh's got the pieces there. They're just without a quarterback at this point. Washington was one of those other teams that I said I think could make the move, but obviously they made the move for Carson Wentz, so that kind of takes them out of the equation. I mean, would Carolina be willing to do it? Carolina's been trying to get a quarterback. I mean, Carolina would be, I think, the most realistic place because you go to Indianapolis, you're going to have expectations.
Yep.
You go to Pittsburgh, you're going to have expectations.
Yep.
You go to Carolina, you're not going to have any expectations. You go to Carolina, you're pretty much out there just to do your own thing because Carolina's terrible. So if you go to Carolina and actually show that you can play well, congratulations, you just played yourself into a contract.
Yeah, and honestly, I pray. This is actually so funny. I would laugh so hard if Jordan Love ends up somewhere and just tears the league. You know what I mean? He just goes like off and he throws he's first player to throw 60 touchdowns in the season or something. And I would just laugh at the Packers fans who told me that that this kid was not going to be a good pick. He's never going to see the field, and he never saw the field. And I would just laugh at Packers management more so than anything. It's like, you were so scared to move off of Aaron Rodgers, so scared to try something that you missed out. I hope that Jordan Love goes somewhere and just tears and turns the league and takes it by storm.
I'm not going to say he's going to be a great quarterback, but I don't think he's going to be bad either.
Oh, I'm not saying he's going to do that. I'm just hoping.
I think he'll go somewhere and have a lot of success, but I hate the Packers. This is kind of funny, but what I hope really happens. I hope Love gets traded. I really hope he gets traded somewhere. And then I hope Rodgers gets hurt. Not to the point where his career is over or anything like that, but I hope he goes through like another broken collarbone again.
Oh my God.
And then you don't have a backup. And all of a sudden now you're like, crap, we literally just gave rid of Jordan Love. And now we don't have anybody. And then all of a sudden Jordan Love goes and actually has like a quality year, helps his team like get close to making the playoffs. And then you're sitting there like, why do we just give Rodgers for this much money when we actually did have a capable starter behind him?
And the thing is, like, all of us want to say, oh, well, Jordan Love isn't ready. Jordan Love is this. Jordan Love is that. We have no idea. His film at college is not conclusive enough to tell us anything, right? Like, we have no idea what he's going to be. And it's similar to Trey Lance in a way as, like, we have no idea if he's ready or not ready just because we haven't seen him really play. At least Trey Lance has played, I think, what was it, 2 games he's played?
Yeah.
Or Jordan Love.
The only thing that Trey Lance has going for him as opposed to Jordan Love is San Francisco can make that system like Baltimore.
Oh, yeah.
If you make that system like Baltimore and use him like Lamar Jackson, he's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Because you have like Elijah Mitchell, you have Mostert, you have Debo, you have Kittle, like everything that Baltimore has, you could do in San Francisco, and that would just take the pressure off of him versus Jordan Love would have instant pressure because you have Aaron Jones, you have Devontae Adams, and he'd be living up to what Favre and Rodgers have done the last 30 years.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Again, I want him to get traded just so we could see what he can do, and for him to actually get an opportunity to show what he can do. Because there's been a lot of slander on Jordan Love's name, and I'm not going to say it's unwarranted. I'm not going to say it's warranted, but I want to see the kid play. Like I don't want to see him turn into Doug Peterson where you just never see the field. You know, like I want to see the kid play, and I want to see him earn a contract. I don't want to see him sign like a 1 year, $8 million deal somewhere just to go and be another backup. I want him to, get traded somewhere. They actually try to work with him. They get him on the field and they let him play. I want to see what he can do as a starting quarterback in the NFL. And I just, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen with the Green Bay Packers.
I don't either.
Again, I think you brought up some great names. The Colts could definitely make a move if they're desperate enough to just say, and honestly, it's like, well, what do we have to lose? Okay, we gave up a 4th-round pick for Jordan Love. All right, whatever. You know what I mean? Well,
if the Colts are content on winning, though, I can see him going after Dalton.
Yeah.
On a short-term 1 or 2 year deal, you bring Dalton in there because he's proven. And, I mean, that's your bridge quarterback for the next couple of years while you can actually draft on it. Or even Mitch Trubisky. Why would the Colts even try to make a run at Mitch Trubisky? You pair Trubisky with Jonathan Taylor, that could actually work in your favor quite well.
Yeah, again, Trubisky to me is not going to win you a Super Bowl, but you could at least have success. You could do something decent. Say, be efficient. Here, hand it off, short screen game to Michael Pittman. And I think if the Colts can actually get, a short possession receiver, guy who can just run short routes, be a guy just quick throw, and it's like a yak guy, run after the catch kind of guy, To me, that's perfect because you can go play action and just quick throw and then have Pittman be kind of more of your deep threat kind of guy. You know what I mean? I think if you can add Pittman's kind of a tweener where he's not really a deep threat and he's not really a possession slot guy. He's just somewhere where he can do a little bit of both. If you can have a real deep threat or a real, short underneath yak kind of receiver, now Pittman can kind of find a role and be, I think, a little bit better of a receiver. And they could work with Mitch Trubisky. Again, I want a team just to trade for Jordan Love. Be like, what do you have to do? You're going to get him on a rookie deal. You trade a 4th, 5th round pick to go get a guy taken in the first round. You go get him. If he doesn't work, you move off of him. If he works, wow, you just found your guy for a 5th round draft pick. Trubisky, the same thing. You can go pay him $10 million. And I think the Giants, to me, are the spot he's going to end up going to reuniting with Brian Dable. I think he's a better option than Daniel Jones. At least can give you a little bit more athletic playing style. If you want to do some of the read option stuff, you could do that with Mitch Trubisky. Again, there are quarterbacks who won't turn your franchise around now, but if you could just try them out for low risk, you could have at least a good amount of success.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think teams are just scared of I think they're so scared of losing that they're afraid of trying almost, you know what I mean? And it's like, you're not winning anyway. If you're the Giants, you're not winning anyway with Daniel Jones. Why not try something? Again, it's not like if you have to give a 1st round pick to go get Mitch Trubisky, that's something different. You are giving up nothing for very little money. Say, here, Mitch, just try it. And if it clicks, it clicks, Jordan Love. If it clicks, it clicks. If it doesn't, all right, $10 million down the drain. A 5th round pick down the drain. Whatever. I'm okay with that. But at least I know I tried. I'd rather go down swinging than just go down being mediocre.
Right.
Some people just don't get that. But Dustin, it's been a great hour. We had talked about a lot. Appreciate you for tuning in, jumping on with us here at ASAP Recap. Dustin, you got any last words for the people here on this brilliant Friday afternoon?
Make sure you tune in on Sunday for the bracketology bracket reveal for the NCAA tournament, because I'm sure Aaman and I are going to have a lot to digest into that next Friday once those brackets come out, and the first official day of the NCAA tournament would be over by the time we hit live next week.
Oh, man, Matt, like we say, March Madness is going to be madness because we know the bracketology stuff is always crazy. There's always someone you're like, how did they not make it? How did this team get in? How did they fall out of a 1 seed? Make sure you do tune in.
I already had the March Madness last night with that video that I posted.
Oh my God, that video was unbelievable. Check out Dustin's page, but my God, that was an unbelievable play to find. You said explain the situation. Go.
So, number 1 ranked team in the state of Wisconsin is 26-1, riding a 24-game win streak. They were facing a team that they beat twice during the regular season. That's from the same conference. Both times they beat them on buzzer beaters during the regular season. So this team has been able to play with the number 1 ranked team for a long time. The number 1 ranked team had a 14-point halftime lead, and it looked like they were just going to blow them out of the water. Second half starts, the other team just continues to chip away, and then they held Nina scoreless for like 4 minutes. They were able to take a 1-point lead with 10 seconds left. Nina got on the court. They drew up. They got fouled, and then they called a timeout with 3 seconds left to draw up a play. They basically just ran a short curl to the corner and got it to their Division I point guard, who just hit a fadeaway triple into the crowd for the game winner.
Ice in the veins. It was an unbelievable clip, and then when you put the context on it, just makes it that much more incredible. At a loss of words am I for that, because that's just what every kid dreams of. I remember being in my driveway here, and I'd be like, 5, 4, 3. He puts up the shot, and it goes, and this kid actually did it. I mean, the video is absolutely crazy. One of the best videos I've seen in a while. Dustin, it's been a pleasure, as always, talking to you, and we'll see you guys right back here Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central here on ASAP Recap. And until then, peace out and stay safe.
Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. 365, we're making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports, all plays.